What's up guys, Ghost here, and today I've got my good friend Prodigio Pete with me, and we're going to be discussing some of the Battlefield Hardline Beta. So, welcome Pete, what's up man?
Hey man, how you doing? I'm good.
Cool man. So, yeah, I guess we'll start off with the game modes. What have your thoughts been on the game modes that we've had, out of the three Hotwire, Heist, and Conquest so far?
Oh, really? I'm glad that that they put the Hotwire and the Heist into the beta, so we had a chance to try some of the new game modes. Of course, there's quite a few coming in Hardline. Should we talk about Hotwire a little bit?
Yeah, sure man. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, well, obviously that's like a completely different concept to a first-person shooter game. But I suppose my sort of thoughts on it are that, Hotwire is never going to be a go-to game mode for me, but I do enjoy it and I do think it's a lot of fun, and it's probably the sort of game that I'll hop in and play a few games every now and then or after work just to chill out. But driving cars around probably isn't what you play a first-person shooter game to do, but still, I think it's fun. Have you been enjoying it?
I have, yeah, but I really agree with you that it's probably not going to be my go-to game mode, and I don't really think it's going to be something that anyone's going to go to for the core sort of Battlefield enjoyment. It does feel a little bit like a Grand Theft Auto game crossed with a Battlefield game,
Yeah.
in some respects. But that being said, it is a lot of fun. It's nice to unwind, and personally for me, sometimes I think it's nice to play a game mode that you don't really have to concentrate on teamwork too much, and you can just sort of mess around a little bit. And if there is a game mode where you can mess around, I would say that Hotwire is almost definitely it.
Though I was just going to say that I think they've done it quite well, because one of my big concerns was that you'd be able to just get the car and just take it somewhere safe. But of course you've got to be constantly driving to be in to capture the flag and to keep it. So to be in control of the flag, you've got to be moving at all times. So one of my big concerns was that you would just take it back towards your base and just leave it there. But I like the way that they've done that, so you've got to be on the move all the time, and it speeds up the gameplay. But of course it's not without its faults, which I think you were coming on to one of them then.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I really agree with you there as well. By putting on the speed that you needed to actually travel at in order to get points, or I should say to reduce the enemy team's points, they're really dictating the way the game mode will play out, and also the way that the streets are rather linear. At least on the maps we got to try them out on Dust Bowl and on Downtown, it wasn't very linear, so you could sort of see if a car was going into this sort of U-turn, you knew where he was going to come out from, and you could sort of set him up in a trap. Unfortunately, the traps often ended up being stuff like breaching charges, and while it is really fun to do, and, I'm definitely guilty of doing that myself. I say guilty, I mean, it is just a bit of fun, but yeah, the breaching charge spam can get quite out of control, and also the RPGs and the SMOR started to get worse and worse. Initially in the beta, it was just a battle pickup. There was maybe one or two listed around the maps as battle pickups. You only had one round in each of them, so you could only fire one, take out one car, and that was your lot. But once people started to unlock the RPG as the vehicle upgrade, it probably started to get a little bit more out of hand than I first would have thought it would have.
Yeah, I would go along with that. As the beta went along, I think my first few rounds on Hotwire were really, really enjoyable, but it did diminish somewhat as people did have more of the RPGs in the boot of their own vehicle to take you out with, and lots more people had the breaching charges, and people became more aware of where the cars were spawning so they could camp them out. So I must admit, I haven't unlocked all the different things that you can have in the game, and I am aware that there is some sort of, I believe that there's some sort of armour upgrade for the cars which might improve that situation a little bit, but sometimes I must admit, when I'm driving around in those cars, I feel like somewhat of a sitting duck waiting to be killed.
Yeah, exactly, man. Also, another thing I actually forgot to mention before is the transport helicopters. A lot of people have been complaining about them, and it's a little bit odd because on Dust Bowl you actually spawn in and you don't get a single stinger for your team, so you pretty much have to rely on the Magnum rounds, which I'm sure we'll get to in the video that's going to be on your channel later on.
Yep.
You've either got to rely on those or your skills with the SMOR or the RPG. But on the other hand, if you spawn on downtown, you actually get access to a Stinger in your team's deployment right from the get-go, so the transport helicopter isn't really an issue. But yeah, definitely left to itself without anyone dealing with it, the transport helicopter can, just wreck the enemy vehicles.
Yeah, I've not spent much time inside the transport helicopter, but I've been on the receiving end of what you're talking about. I've been in cars, and what feels like an instantaneous death on my part, I didn't really know I was taking damage, and then all of a sudden I seem to have been down instantly from the enemy not attack helicopter, the transport helicopter. So, but I think that's more an issue with just being notified of the damage that's being inflicted upon your vehicle. If you know that you're taking some serious damage, maybe you would hop out, but sometimes you don't really seem to be aware of how badly damaged your vehicle is.
Yeah, I definitely agree that one thing that Visceral could look at is improving the hit indication rather, in the sound input department, so you actually know when you're taking a large amount of damage.
Yeah, definitely.
So what about Heist then, mate?
Heist, I've been enjoying a lot. It's because it's really the only kind of close quarters game mode in the beta at the moment. So I have been playing, I'd say Heist is the mode I played the most of, followed by Conquest, then Hotwire. Now I really like Heist, particularly, like yesterday I was on with a whole squad of friends, and we felt like we could really change the game, like our squad could really make a positive impact. If I'm on there though, on my own, and I'm just playing with random people on a public server, I feel like the game diminishes. It's not as much fun to play just with random people, and I suppose that could go for any game mode. It certainly was the case with Rush in all the battlefields previously, but I really felt it true in Heist mode. But I really enjoy it. But some rounds can be over super quickly if the other team has a couple of squads that are friends in comms together, or sometimes rounds can seem to go on forever because the guy carrying the money gets taken out and then the money is stranded on the floor, and if the cops don't send that money back to the vault, they can just guard it and just mow down all the criminals as they try to retrieve the money. So you can get kind of funny balance with that game mode. I think one of the issues might be just the fact that one of the extraction points is quite near the police deployment. So maybe that could be looked at being, because this, like, is it 3 extraction points that it varies between?
Yeah.
I think that might be the B one. I might be wrong, but that could probably do with being moved a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't play the game mode, I think, as much as you did. I would actually say it's probably my least played game mode.
Alright.
But not necessarily because I didn't enjoy it. But yeah, I definitely experienced a lot of the things you were talking about, like rounds being over insanely fast.
Yeah.
So, perhaps after a couple of minutes the round was done. And even in a game, if you compare this to Rush, which I suppose is the obvious thing that people are going to draw comparisons between, it is quite similar. You have to sort of blow up an objective, and I suppose it's kind of mixed in with capture the flag type gameplay. Yeah, in Rush game mode, you have to go through several sets of different objectives, whereas in Heist, there's only really the 2 different objectives,
Exactly.
and if you can sneak those bags out in a minute or so, you pretty much can just win the rounds. So I did find what a lot of other people were talking about, that the games were just completely one-sided a lot of the time, and you lost or you won ridiculously fast.
Yeah, I'd go along exactly with what you're saying. Like in Rush, once you do those first set of MCOMs, you've then got a period of time, then you've got the next set, and then the next set. So the game is certainly longer than your typical Heist game. But I was thinking one possible solution to that is, when you go in, you break down the vault, you go through the doors, and you have the 2 bags of cash to steal.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it would make sense to just be able to get 1 bag at a time and then take that to an extraction point and then come back for the second bag. I mean, I'm sure that, like, if you use that as a solution, it would probably come with its own issues as well.
Yeah.
Like the defensive team, the cops could then know exactly what flag you would be going to, but then there's always sort of an option of it's always going to be 2 or 3 flags, because I think the issue with having both bags available from the get-go is if the other team really are well equipped and they're in the game and they've got their heads switched on, they can get the game over and done with really quickly. And I find, like, sometimes it just takes the other team to just get into the flow a bit, the cops side, and to actually start defending properly. So maybe that could be a possible solution. I'm not entirely sure. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I would also agree with that one, man. I mean, I think that being able to blow open both vaults and gain access to both the bags is fine, but being able to just pick up one of them and get away with that without being able to pick up the other one is a good idea. Maybe they would have to split the bags up, so instead of them being in a similar position, because they were essentially in the same room once you got into the vault, so that makes it for the cops side, ridiculously easy to defend. But say that they were in different rooms, it would be a little bit ridiculous if you could actually grab both bags then, because obviously the cops are going to have to defend both places at once, they're going to have to run after 2 targets at once, and chances are they're only going to be able to take down one of the bag carriers, and the other one's going to get away and, get that easy first objective, and then they can just concentrate all of their team's firepower on the last one. So yeah, I would definitely agree with you there, man.
I think because I have to say, I've really been enjoying Heist. It does need a few tweaks and stuff to make it, a really great game mode in Battlefield Hardline. But I have been enjoying it a lot. But what I would really like to see is how we were saying in Rush, how you have the first set of MCOMs, then the second. And I know, logically, this does not make sense. But I almost, sometimes want another round, on the same map. But thematically, it wouldn't work because, once you've stolen the money and got it to the extraction point, you're not going to go back and rob another bank on the same day. But it would be quite cool if there was some way of extending the round. But all in all, I have been enjoying it, and even when the game mode ends, what I like about Hardline is it seems to rotate very quickly through the menu screen to the next game. Have you noticed that? On Battlefield 4, between games, you got a long period of loading, but in Hardline it seems to be very snappy, at least on PC.
Definitely, man. I suppose this, nicely leads us into the gameplay section. But yeah, definitely, man, it's great. The game closes quick and it starts up quick, which is one of the most annoying things for me. Even running the game on an SSD with Battlefield 4. So it's great to see that has happened as well. In regards to the gameplay, I suppose the first thing we're going to mention are probably the words, I don't know, fast, furious, and time to kill. I think those are definitely some of the things that sets Hardline apart from, previous Battlefield games in the genre. What would you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's also part of the sort of marketing thing behind Hardline, isn't it? It's about speed, strategy, and I think there's one other S. They've gone for the whole alliteration thing. But yeah, fast and furious, I think that's quite true. As you say, you've got the time to kill, and then some of the game modes seem to be designed around that. And also the movement speed of just the soldier seems a bit quicker, a bit snappier as well. And then on top of that, you've got all of the muscle cars and stuff to get around the maps, of course, not on heist mode, but in Hardline in general. So yeah, I'd agree with that assessment. How have you been finding Conquest? Have you been enjoying it? Have you been getting much time in the air?
I've been loving Conquest, actually. I think it's at a really good balance at the moment. Obviously, we've only got to experience it on one map, and, the map layout and design is a big part of how Conquest plays out. But so far, my experiences on Dust Bowl have been great. I've been loving it. I think the vehicle balance is good as well. Having the one scout heli on either team, you can wreck in those things. You can get a lot of damage done. But on the other hand, you can be taken out, so I don't really think they're too overpowered. The flow of infantry between flags is great. You don't really need a vehicle to get from flag to flag.
No.
But there are still plenty of vehicles at your disposal if you need to take one.
Yeah, totally. I've been enjoying the Conquest a lot. As I say, after Heist, it's my second most played game mode in the beta. What I've found, even though the map is sort of fairly big, I suppose you would say, and probably by Hardline standards, it's going to be one of the bigger maps in the game, I've found that even just moving between the different flags, say if you're at the motel flag, which is kind of central, but then to run to the mine, it's not a long way to get between the flags. It's perfectly viable to do that on foot. You don't necessarily need a vehicle to get, like for example, Armored Kill Battlefield 3.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's a big map or big set of maps, so you would need a vehicle to get between all the different cap points. But yeah, it's a big map, but actually the way that they've positioned the flags, it doesn't feel like you're running endlessly to be in a bit of combat or to capture the next flag. However, that might be sort of down to the class you're playing somewhat as well, because if you're playing the sort of SMG class, I was saying on my channel, you probably don't want to be running too much between flags, because as you start getting out of sort of 10 to 12 meters away from your enemy, you're not inflicting too much damage on them. So you don't want to get caught in gun battles between flags so much, because your power is in close quarters. So if you can grab a bike or a car and get to the next flag, then that's a big help for you.
Exactly, yeah. And I actually found the central, the motel area, if you go in and around that objective, there are just so many little windows and cubby holes that people can be shooting at you from. You know, they have access to the entirety of the map, and I would actually say that's probably the most important flag, really, for your team to hold. You can sort of spawn there, you can get across to any of the flags, and you can look out of the windows looking in any direction and essentially snipe people and take them out easily. I would definitely say the majority of my deaths happened when I was running towards the motel.
Yeah, man, that flag there is where it's at. It's like, it's where all the other flags converge upon. It's where everyone wants to be. And no end of times on sort of 64-man servers I've been in there, and there's just been seemingly dozens of enemies in there trying to take me out. But I think it plays out really well. It's a nicely balanced map. Of course, you know, it's only one map that we've got to play on Conquest Large, but I've been really enjoying it. I think it probably would play better on a sort of 48-man server as opposed to a 64, because that motel area, as I say, can get a bit jam-packed with people. But still, it doesn't really diminish from my fun. But in the long term, when we have full sort of server access with Hardline, I probably would enjoy playing on a 48 or a 32-man server more than a 64.
Yeah, exactly, man. Anyway, I guess we better wrap this one up. We've been going for almost 20 minutes now, dude.
Wow, that is crazy. This has been 20 minutes of us chatting.
Definitely, man. But thanks very much for coming along and having this chat with me today, mate.
Thanks for having me on, man.
Alright guys, if you want to hear me and Pete talk about some more Battlefield Hardline Beta, then you can click the annotation on screen now and head over to his channel. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.